A very good morning. It's just past 8 this Friday morning, and we're back again with another edition of Breakfast News. Over the next 60 minutes, over the next 1 hour, we'll get you all that matters for India and the rest of the world. In the next 60 minutes, we'll cut the noise, get you all the facts from the world of politics, business, sports and entertainment, especially COVID. I am Anil Thomas. With me this morning is my co-anchor, Rukma Datta. Good morning, Rukma.
A very good morning to you, Anil, and to all our viewers as well. And as Anil just said, over the next 1 hour, we bring you all the stories making headlines across India and the world. Of course, we'll be touching in detail on the Prime Minister's packed agenda for the day. Also, we'll be taking a closer look at how far vaccine trials have progressed in as far as the COVID vaccine is concerned. Very positive news emerging on that front. News from sports as also from the web and much, much more. But first, the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bhutanese counterpart Lotte Tshering to launch RuPay Card Phase 2 in a joint virtual ceremony in Bhutan. Launch of RuPay Card Phase 2 to allow Bhutanese card holders to access RuPay network in India.
In Uttar Pradesh, 14 persons, including 6 children, die in road accident in Manikpur area of Pratapgarh. Four-wheeler returning from wedding ceremony collides with truck on the highway.
Central teams to visit Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat and Manipur to assess the COVID-19 situation. Central teams to provide assistance to state in prevention of corona. MHA advises Haryana and UP governments to hold survey of private hospitals in their NCR districts on the lines of Delhi.
Daily trend of recoveries outpacing new cases ensures continuous shedding of active caseload. 2,000 rupee fine for not wearing a mask in Delhi. Ahmedabad imposes indefinite night curfew after rise in COVID-19 cases. Third phase of clinical trials for Covaxin to begin in Haryana.
Hafiz Saeed, mastermind of the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai, sentenced to 10 years in 2 terror cases by a court in Pakistan.
In tennis, Rafael Nadal beats Stefanos Tsitsipas to make last 4 at ATP Finals, beats 2019 champion Tsitsipas in 3 sets to set up a meeting with Russian Daniil Medvedev in semi-finals. Novak Djokovic and Alexander Zverev face off for the other 2 last 4 slots in London.
Well, those are the headlines at the top of this hour. Now for the stories in details. What do we start with, Rukma?
Well, first of all, as we're telling you in our headlines itself, breaking news is short while back, tragic accident there in Uttar Pradesh, in Manipur, in Pratapgarh, a few dead, many injured. We'll be taking a look at everything that happened in the course of the bulletin. And of course, as we were telling you, we begin by talking about how Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bhutanese counterpart Lotte Tshering will launch the RuPay Card Phase 2 in a joint virtual ceremony today. PM Modi and Bhutan PM had jointly launched Phase 1 of the project during the state visit of Prime Minister Modi to Bhutan in August 2019. The implementation of Phase 1 of the RuPay cards in Bhutan has enabled visitors from India to access ATMs and point-of-sale terminals across Bhutan. Phase 2 will now allow Bhutanese cardholders to access RuPay network in India. India and Bhutan share a special partnership anchored in mutual understanding and respect, reinforced by a shared cultural heritage and strong people-to-people links. RuPay is the first of its kind global card payment network from India, with wide acceptance at shops, ATMs and online. Presently, RuPay cards are issued by more than 1,100 banks, which includes public sector banks, private sector banks, regional, rural and cooperative banks. The name, derived from the words rupee and payment, emphasizes that it is India's very own initiative for debit and credit card payments. The card can also be used for transactions in Singapore, Bhutan, UAE, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. According to the RuPay website, there were 600 million RuPay cards in force as of January 2020, issued to both Jan Dhan and non-Jan Dhan account holders. RuPay fulfills RBI's vision of initiating a less cash economy.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday held a bilateral summit with Xavier Bettel, Prime Minister of Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, in a virtual format. The two Prime Ministers exchanged views on strengthening India-Luxembourg relationship in the post-COVID world, especially in the areas of financial technology, green financing, space applications, digital innovations and startups. They welcomed the conclusion of various agreements between the two countries, including those between their financial market regulators, stock exchanges and innovation agencies.
आज जब विश्व कोविड-19 पैंडेमिक की आर्थिक और स्वास्थ्य चुनौतियों से जूझ रहा है, भारत लक्जमबर्ग पार्टनरशिप दोनों देशों के साथ साथ दोनों क्षेत्रों की रिकवरी के लिए उपयोगी हो सकती है। डेमोक्रेसी, रूल ऑफ लॉ और फ्रीडम जैसे साझा आदर्श हमारे संबंधों और आपसी सहयोग को मजबूती देते हैं। भारत और लक्जमबर्ग के बीच आर्थिक आदान प्रदान बढ़ाने का बहुत पोटेंशियल है।
Well, the two Prime Ministers agreed to strengthen cooperation on realizing effective multilateralism and combating global challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic, terrorism and climate change. Prime Minister Bettel also invited Prime Minister Modi to visit Luxembourg at his convenience.
The relations between both countries, as you said, are excellent. We have an Indian community growing in Luxembourg with over 60% the last years. As you said, I will welcome also the agreement on the area of space, which has to be signed in the margin of this summit, with the successful launch of ISRO and the PSLV C49. Other agreements were signed in the area of finance, and not only the stock exchange, and between also our regulators, which is very important, which provide a sound basis from which to further explore common opportunities.
In Uttar Pradesh, 14 persons, including 6 children, died in a road accident in Manikpur area of Pratapgarh. They were returning from a wedding ceremony when the four-wheeler they were travelling in collided with a truck on the Prayagraj-Lucknow highway under limits of Manikpur police station last night. We'll get back to this story as and when we get more updates.
नवंबर को रात्रि लगभग 11:45 बजे थाना क्षेत्र मानिकपुर अंतर्गत प्रयागराज लखनऊ हाईवे पर एक बोलेरो और एक ट्रक में एक्सीडेंट होने की सूचना प्राप्त हुई। इस सूचना पर तत्काल सीओ कुंडा सर्कल की फोर्स के साथ मौके पर पहुंचे। मौके पर जो पुलिस बल पहुंचा, उनके द्वारा घटनास्थल पर क्षतिग्रस्त बोलेरो गाड़ी से 5 डेड बॉडी बाहर निकाली गई। इसके बाद जेसीबी द्वारा बोलेरो को ट्रक के नीचे से बाहर निकाला गया, रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन चालू किया गया और जो क्षतिग्रस्त बोलेरो थी उससे 9 और व्यक्तियों की डेड बॉडी पुलिस के द्वारा बरामद की गई। इस प्रकार इस दुखद दुर्घटना में लगभग कुल 14 व्यक्तियों की मृत्यु हुई है। मृत व्यक्तियों में 8 पुरुष हैं जिनकी उम्र 20 से 60 वर्ष के बीच में है और 6 बच्चे हैं जिनकी उम्र 7 से 15 वर्ष के बीच में है।
Well, SP Anurag Arya, SP Pratapgarh, giving an update on that particular tragedy that shocked all of us. Well, moving on to COVID. Delhi is once again facing a spike in COVID cases. 7,546 new cases have been detected from 62,437 tests. 98 COVID deaths have been reported in the national capital in the last 24 hours. Active cases in Delhi now stand at 43,221. More COVID-related news in our COVID Wrap segment.
Delhi is once again facing a spike in COVID cases. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal called an all-party meet to discuss the COVID challenge. BJP, Congress as well as other parties participated in the meeting. After the deliberations, BJP accused the Delhi government of failing on the COVID front because of its casual attitude.
125 करोड़ रुपया तो आपने पिछले 4 महीने के अंदर विज्ञापन पर खर्च कर दिए। दिल्ली सरकार पूरी तरह से विफल साबित हुई है।
The Delhi High Court also severely criticized the Delhi government for its flip-flop on the cap on the number of wedding attendees allowed in the wake of a fresh wave of the COVID-19 pandemic sweeping the city. The court said, "You saw from November 1st which way the wind was blowing, but you turned turtle now because we asked you some questions. The bell should have rung loud and clear when the numbers were spiraling. Why did you not wake up when you saw the situation was deteriorating? Why did we have to shake you out of your slumber on November 11th? What did you do from November 1st till November 11th? Why did you wait 18 days till November 18 to take a decision? Do you know how many lives were lost during this period? Can you explain it to those who lost their near and dear ones?" After this, the Delhi government announced the decision to increase the penalty for not wearing a mask to Rs 2,000 from the earlier 500. The union government is also doing all it can to help tide over the crisis in Delhi. A high-level team will tour Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat and Manipur to assess the situation. The team will work along the local authorities on tracing, testing, prevention and clinical management of the cases. In some good news for COVID warriors, Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare Dr. Harshvardhan has announced that 5 seats in medical colleges will be reserved for their children. The reservation will be for 2020-21 session. COVID warriors have been defined as those working at the ground level, be they ASHA and Anganwadi workers or nurses and doctors. The selection will be based on merit. The union government has also decided to honor those who have sacrificed their lives in the line of duty.
और हमने इसके संदर्भ में अपने मंत्रालय में चिंतन करके इस साल से एक निर्णय लिया है कि जो मेडिकल कॉलेजेस में MBBS की सीट्स होती हैं उसमें जो एक नेशनल कोटा होता है अलग अलग कैटेगरीज का, उसमें 5 सीट्स कोविड वॉरियर्स के बच्चों को ऑब्वियसली नीट को वो क्वालिफाई करेंगे, लेकिन उनके लिए एक्सक्लूसिवली रिजर्व की जाएंगी.
Talking of the latest All India data, in the last 24 hours, 45,576 persons were found to be infected with COVID. During the same period, India has registered 48,493 new recoveries, ensuring a net reduction of 2,917 cases from the active caseload. The new recoveries continue to overtake the daily new cases continuously since the past 47 days. India's active caseload has fallen below the 5% mark. India's present active caseload of 4,43,303 patients consists of just 4.95% of the total positive cases. New recoveries outnumbering the daily new cases every 24-hour cycle has also improved the recovery rate to 93.58%. The impact of corona is being felt by those performing Chhath Puja also. Delhi has banned performing puja in public places. Maharashtra, Odisha and Uttarakhand have also followed suit. DD India.
The Ministry of Home Affairs has ramped up Delhi's medical infrastructure due to surge in COVID-19 cases. The ministry has decided to convert 500 isolation beds to beds with oxygen facility at COVID Care Centre at Chhatarpur. Beds to be ready by the weekend. All 75 doctors and 251 paramedics from CAPF have reported for duty at Chhatarpur and Shakurbasti COVID Care Centres. Delhi government has asked to refer patients needing critical care to these facilities. Following Home Minister's directive, nearly 150 ICU beds have been added in the past 3 days in Delhi. Also, current capacity of 3,652 ICU beds will be further ramped up. Train coaches with 800 beds at Shakurbasti railway station are to become functional. Doctors and paramedics from CAPF to man these coaches. 10 multidisciplinary teams of MHA have been constituted to visit more than 100 private hospitals in Delhi to assess bed utilization and testing capacity and to identify extra ICU beds and they have submitted their reports. After Home Minister's review meeting on Delhi's COVID situation, more than 28,708 RT-PCR tests were conducted on Wednesday. The capacity of RT-PCR tests are to be ramped up to 60,000 per day by end of November. The MHA has advised Haryana and UP governments to hold a survey of private hospitals in their NCR districts on the lines of Delhi.
Ahmedabad in Gujarat will go under complete curfew from 9 p.m. tonight till Monday morning, with only shops selling milk and medicines remaining open in view of the steep surge in COVID-19 cases. The decision to impose the night curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. from Friday was taken in a review meeting chaired by the Chief Minister of Gujarat, Vijay Rupani, and attended by the Deputy Chief Minister Nitin Patel and senior officials of the AMC on Thursday. The situation was reviewed again late evening. Additional Chief Secretary, Forest and Environment, Rajiv Kumar Gupta, in a late-night post on Twitter, emphasized that after the total curfew lifts on Monday at 6 a.m., the city would go under the indefinite night curfew Monday night onwards. The Gujarat government also decided to put on hold the reopening of schools and colleges from November 23rd.
The third phase of testing of Covaxin in Haryana will begin today. Haryana's cabinet minister and senior BJP leader Anil Vij has offered himself to be the first volunteer to be vaccinated for the third phase trials of Bharat Biotech's COVID-19 vaccine. This is the largest clinical trial conducted for the COVID vaccine in India. Covaxin is being developed indigenously by Bharat Biotech in collaboration with the Indian Council of Medical Research. Last month, the vaccine maker said it has successfully completed interim analysis of phase 1 and 2 trials and is initiating phase 3 trials. Bharat Biotech had on Monday said the phase 3 trial of Covaxin will involve 26,000 volunteers across 25 centers in India and is being conducted in partnership with ICMR. It is the largest clinical trial conducted for a COVID-19 vaccine in India.
Well, for more on that story, our correspondent Tapas joining us this morning with details on the COVID situation in Delhi and also across India. Tapas, good morning. Tapas, give us a sense of what exactly is the problem in Delhi. On one end, we are hearing that, there are many more beds being procured in private hospitals, as well as, a lot of other institutions coming to help, like the Indian Railways, they're coming to help. But what seems to be the situation there on ground zero, that we're still running out of ICU beds?
Right, Anil. So let me just start with the fact that yesterday night, Delhi Health Bulletin came out, and according to that, 7,546 fresh new cases came out yesterday night in the last 24 hours, taking the infection tally in the national capital to over 5 lakh. And 98 fatalities happened in the last 24 hours, pushing the overall count to almost over 8,040 in the sense. And if you take a close look in Delhi, you will find that as per the Delhi government as well as the other agencies, the number of beds in the national capital is hovering, is in a shortage. In fact, as per the Delhi government and union ministries' opinion, almost 80 to 90% of the beds are currently occupied, and there is a strong need to increase that. And that's one of the reasons why MHA has said that 45 doctors and 160 paramedics from the paramilitary forces have been deployed in the national capital to fight the menace, and the Home Ministry is also said that they are planning to increase the ICU beds by 150 in Delhi. And the current capacity in Delhi is nearly 3,652 ICU beds, and they're planning to, in fact, both the Delhi government as well as the central government is planning to increase it to over 6,000 to fight this surge in the coronavirus cases that is currently taking place. And if one goes by the decision the Delhi High Court, in fact, yesterday wrapped up the Delhi government for its inability to wait for almost 18 days, and that is probably the reason why the situation is currently, you could say that has reached a situation where it is quite alarming, and in fact quite unprecedented, if we use the words by Niti Aayog in its presentation on the November 13th on this Sunday. In fact, when the meeting took place with the Home Minister along with the other stakeholders. So from a peak of almost on November 11, when the new cases touched almost 8,500, over 8,500 mark, one could see that the slew of measures that were taken by the union government along with the stakeholders seems to have in fact calmed down the mood in the national capital. Otherwise, it seems that the spiraling numbers were actually having a repercussion and having a ripple effect in the minds of the Delhiites, and that's on the reason why, in fact, the Home Ministry also said.
Taposh, when you look at this particular story of India, 12% of the caseload that we are looking at in India now is people under 20 years of age. That's a cause of concern, because it was once considered that this is not going to affect children, this is not going to affect adolescents. Now when you look at the new numbers that are coming up, 12% of it children below, or young adults below the age of 20. When you look at it, how do you see this shift happening, and what do you see the reasons for that?
Right. So let's just put it this way, that COVID doesn't discriminate between elderly or young people. Let's just put it that way. And the way the market started opening up, in fact, if we take a close look in last week, in fact, there was almost 200, over 200, in fact, tests were done in the national capital, in Tilak Nagar, Raghubir Nagar, as well as Jail Road, and almost 41 people were found to be tested positive. So these are the hotspots that were identified by the Delhi government as well as the Union Ministry. So that, and if you take a close look, most people who tend to visit these markets, throng these markets during the festive season, that actually is one of the major reasons why there is this major spike. This is the third wave as far as the experts are calling it in the national capital.
Right. Well, Tapas, from what you've told us, it's clear that, and from the reports that we've been receiving, the recovery rate continues to be high despite a surge in cases. And the Delhi government clearly cracking down once again after that reprimand from the High Court about its lackluster attitude. And, as you were saying, many hotspots have been identified. There was news also that there would be further action to maybe close down those hotspots, the Delhi government waiting for the nod from the center. Tell us more about, also there are central teams that are visiting various states in order to help them deal with the COVID situation. A quick roundup of that.
Yeah, that's right. So let's just put it this way, that the first and foremost, the Delhi LG has in fact agreed to one of the points that Delhi government, after in consultation with the all-party meeting, has put forward. And according to that, the fine has been increased from earlier 500, the first-time offence, to almost 2,000 rupees. So that's a steep increase. Also, it was said that a more coordinated approach, and one has to go through the whole idea of finding out who is monitoring the whole thing of who is wearing masks or adhering to the social distancing, physical distancing norms. That has to be strengthened. And so that is one thing that has been put into place by the Delhi LG. Now, going by what you talk about the Ministry of Home Affairs, they have actually made it. They have actually said that to the Delhi's the border areas, also to both Noida as well as to Faridabad. In fact, both UP and Haryana, that they need to actually do more testing as well as figure it, do the door-to-door survey that they have also recommended for Delhi. So all these efforts, the idea is to understand that because Delhi's border are with most of the other states. The idea is to understand that the situation that continues to spiral in Delhi does not go out of hand, especially in the border areas, and that's one of the reasons why we have seen that the UP government, in fact, putting restrictions, doing random testing in the
as well as
border
states
areas.
and all stakeholders intensifying efforts across the world. In fact, that's what we are saying. Thank you very much for joining us there. So clearly, Anil, the government stepping up efforts, intensifying efforts, even as cases surge. However, perhaps that's why the recovery rate continues to be good.
Well, the recovery rate continues to be good. Remember, but India has crossed that 90 lakh mark. But the big positive that one can look forward from that number is that last 1 lakh has taken almost 22 days to reach, which if you compare it with when India moved from 4 to 5 lakh, it looks almost 11 days. So the spread of the pandemic is almost halved when it comes to the government's measures in containing and trying to stop the spread of the virus. Well, moving on now, we have some visuals there on day 3 of the Malabar exercise in Northern Arabian Sea, in which navies of India, US, Australia and Japan participated. Major highlight of the 4-day exercise is the participation of Indian Navy's Vikramaditya carrier battle and the Nimitz strike group of the US Navy. MiG-29K of the Indian Navy and the F-18 of the US Navy flew along with the Indian Navy's Maritime Patrol aircraft P-8-1 and the US NAEW aircraft E-2C Hawkeye in seamless coordination.
And now let's take a look at what else is making news around India in a national roundup segment.
Union Environment, Forest and Climate Change Minister Prakash Javadekar outlined the progress made by India in the fields of solar and wind energy and the resultant decline in demand for carbon-based fuels. On the occasion of the release of Energy Technology Perspectives 2020 report, he said that India has installed 400 million LEDs so far and their costs have declined by 80% compared to 2013. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath slammed the Congress, asking it to clear its stand on the Gupkar alliance in Jammu and Kashmir and accusing it of double standards that will harm national security. In a significant ruling, the Supreme Court has clarified that the CBI needs to get the consent of the state government concerned before investigating any case. The top court said that under the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, it is mandatory for the CBI to take state's consent. At least 5 persons were killed and several others were critically injured in an explosion inside a plastic factory at Sujanpur in Malda district in West Bengal. The state government has announced an ex-gratia of 2 lakh rupees for the kin of the deceased and 50,000 rupees for the injured. World-famous Rock Garden of Chandigarh has been thrown open to public. The garden was closed in March in wake of COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. Personnel have been deployed at the garden to ensure that visitors follow COVID-appropriate behavior. Entry is permitted after thermal scanning and hand sanitization.
And well, as we were telling you, there's a lot of positive news, even as well countries across the world are intensifying efforts in order to battle COVID-19. We'll get you all that in our next segment, Across the Globe.
Well, a quick update on COVID-19 pandemic from across the world. As of now, more than 5 crore 72 lakh COVID-19 cases being reported worldwide, with over 13 lakh 65,000 deaths being reported. Over 3 crore 97 lakh people have recovered from the virus. United States continues to top the list among the worst hit countries by the pandemic so far, with the highest number of infections and fatalities. Over 1 crore 20 lakh cases of COVID-19 there in the United States, with the death toll now past the 2,58,000 mark.
United States Vice President Mike Pence has said that Pfizer and BioNTech will be filing for emergency authorization of their COVID-19 vaccines today. Pharmaceutical giant Pfizer earlier said that final results from the late-stage trial of its COVID-19 vaccine show it is 95% effective, adding it had the required 2 months of safety data. Pence also said that the Trump administration does not support another lockdown or school closures to stem the spread of the deadly coronavirus. 41 US states have reported daily record increases in COVID cases in November. 20 have registered new all-time highs in coronavirus-related deaths from day to day, and 26 have reported new peaks in hospitalizations. 25 states reported 10% of COVID-19 tests coming positive for the week ending on Sunday. The World Health Organization considers a positivity rate above 5% to be of concern in a country.
Well, a day after Pfizer and Moderna companies declared more than 90% efficiency, third vaccine candidate, the Oxford University AstraZeneca, also announced that excellent results have been achieved in the final phase of trials. Results published in the Lancet journal, it was reported that the vaccine was especially more effective in the elderly people. Although formal results of the final round of trials have not yet been announced.
And one of Australia's strictest 6-day lockdowns kicked off in the country's south on Thursday, with outdoor gatherings, weddings, funerals, takeaway food all coming to a standstill to stifle fresh outbreak of the virus. People will be restricted from going outside their homes, with only one person per household allowed to leave each day, but only for specific purposes. All schools and universities will also be closed, along with the construction industry, which had been allowed to operate during past lockdowns in Australia. Authorities had imposed a lockdown to stamp out what the state premier described as a highly contagious outbreak of the virus that officials linked to a returned traveller from the UK. Australia has registered a total of 27,785 cases of coronavirus, and the death toll has increased to 907. Victoria State, which is the epicenter of Australia's nearly 28,000 cases until last month, clocked its 20th straight day of 0 new cases.
Well, the head of EU's bloc executive, Ursula von der Leyen, said that the European Union must only lift COVID-19 restrictions slowly and gradually to avoid another wave of infection. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen spoke after the 27 national leaders discussed stepping up joint testing efforts in the bloc, doling out vaccines and coordinating on easing lockdowns as a second wave of the pandemic weighed on Europe. Hungary and Poland blocked the EU's 2021-27 budget and recovery plan because access to the funds would be conditional upon respecting the rule of law. Governments are desperate to get jointly borrowed EU money to save businesses and jobs. Europe has had about 11.3 million confirmed COVID-19 cases, and the pandemic has also thrust the EU into its deepest recession.
Meanwhile, Hungary imported Europe's first doses of Russia's much-touted Sputnik V COVID vaccine yesterday. Hungarian plans to conduct trials of and possibly produce the Russian vaccine are an unprecedented step for an EU member state. The move adds to frictions with Brussels after the country blocked the EU budget and recovery fund plans alongside Poland. Under EU rules, Sputnik V must be authorized by the European Medicines Agency before it can be marketed in any state of the 27-nation bloc. Sputnik V is expected to be trialled and produced in other countries across the world beyond Russia soon. Russia's Sovereign Wealth Fund said last week that interim trial results showed that it is 92% effective at protecting people from COVID-19. And the country is preparing for mass inoculations. Vaccines being developed by US firms Moderna and Pfizer, the latter in cooperation with Germany's BioNTech, have shown slightly better results on a much larger sample of people exposed to the virus.
King Harald and Queen Sonja of Norway have gone into voluntary isolation after a royal court employee tested positive for COVID-19 on Thursday. The royal couple will be undergoing COVID-19 diagnostic testing. According to the statement by the Royal Palace, King Harald is self-imposed quarantine at home after Queen Sonja was in close contact with the infected staff member. The statement also said that the royal couple is asymptomatic and 14 other employees at the royal court are also in quarantine. Norway is fighting its battle with the COVID-19 and has recorded over 30,000 positive cases of the virus so far, along with more than 305 deaths.
And in more news now from the neighborhood, Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind of the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, has been sentenced to 10 years in 2 terror cases by a court in Pakistan. This is not the first time that Hafiz Saeed, chief of the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, the front organization for terror group Lashkar-e-Taiba, has been sentenced in a terror case by a Pakistani court. In February, Hafiz Saeed and some of his aides were convicted and sentenced to 11-year terms.
President-elect Joe Biden said that incumbent President Donald Trump's challenge of the results of the November 3rd election was totally irresponsible. Trump had launched legal challenges in multiple states and claimed he is the rightful winner of the election. His administration has blocked Biden's transition team from funding an office space and the president-elect from receiving classified briefings. Biden said that he was not concerned about Trump's refusal to concede the election would prevent a transfer of power. Biden also reiterated that he will not impose a nationwide shutdown for the present COVID situation in the country.
And U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo yesterday became the first U.S. Secretary of State to visit the Golan Heights in a show of solidarity that led Palestinians to accuse him of helping to cement Israeli control over occupied territory. Pompeo visited the Jewish settlement in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, marking the first such visit by a top U.S. official. The trip to Sagot comes a year after Pompeo said that Jewish settlements in the West Bank were not illegal, reversing a long-held U.S. position. The declaration outraged Palestinians who oppose settlements on land they claim for a future independent state. Pompeo's trip to the Heights and to an Israeli settlement in the occupied West Bank comes during the Israeli leg of what may be his last tour of the Middle East in the final months of President Donald Trump's administration.
Scottish author Douglas Stewart won the 2020 Booker Prize on Thursday for his acclaimed debut novel Shughie set in his home city of Glasgow. The 44-year-old Stewart, who won £50,000, is only the second Scottish to have won the prestigious literary prize. The book is based on the author's own childhood that tells of a young boy growing up during tough years in Glasgow with a mother who is battling addiction.
The Green Climate Fund has approved $256 million for Bangladesh in grants and loans to meet its greenhouse gas emission reduction targets under the Paris Agreement. The financing is provided as an integrated package for textile and ready-made garments sectors of the country. The two sectors combined together contribute more than 27% of the industrial carbon emission, as they are working with old and outdated machines with poor energy management. GCF was set up under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 2010 as the world's largest dedicated fund to help developing countries reduce their carbon emissions.
Well, after a look at all those stories there from national as well as international, it's time now to shift focus. And what do we have stored in next, Rukma?
Right, and when coming up in our next segment will be all the news that is trending on Twitter, on social websites, and also in news, in web pages of most newspapers. And Preeti will be joining us for that. But meanwhile, talking about the positive news coming in about the vaccine, well, that is very heartening, Anil.
Well, it is heartening, but there is also a campaign for people not wanting vaccines. That's also picking up strength. But we'll have to wait and watch. Now with the US almost, the two companies are almost getting authorization, things looking good for the vaccine to be at least accepted in the worst hit countries. But a lot of countries still having doubts when it comes to vaccines. We'll see how it unfolds. Let's now shift focus and go over to getting the latest from the World Wide Web in our next segment, Web News Review. Well, let's now go across to our colleague Preeti, who joins us with more on the World Wide Web.
Good morning, Anil. Good morning, Rukma, and good morning to all our viewers. When we talk of the headlines which have been put forth by different web portals, the first I pick up is from the Times of India. I'm sure we must have also carried it in our bulletin, and it says Lahore Court, Anti-Terrorism Court has pronounced 10 years imprisonment to Hafiz Saeed, the chief of Jamaat Dawa, and also this is regarding two cases wherein Hafiz Saeed has been sentenced 10 years more imprisonment. But this headline in the Times of India talks of how he is still getting VIP treatment, and he is seen roaming in his SUV along with his guards. And this is what the headline talks of. And on your screens, we have the details. It says Pakistan is still giving preferential treatment. On one hand, it has put forth this 10-year imprisonment. At the same time, the paper reports that he is being given VIP treatment. Remember, it was in 2019, last year, July 17, when he was nabbed from Kamote area, and he has been lodged in Lakhpat jail. And in addition to that, there were other cases also which were pending against him, and almost 41 cases were pending against him, and of those 24 have already been heard. And in the latest move, Pakistan Anti-Terrorism Court, Lahore Anti-Terrorism Court to be specific, has given 10 years imprisonment to Hafiz Saeed. Also, it has pronounced imprisonment for two of his aides as well. Moving on to the next piece of news, the Hindustan Times is the paper which I pick up. It talks of the encounter which was witnessed yesterday in Jammu and Kashmir, in Nagrota, the Tupan Toll Plaza, wherein 4 terrorists of Jaish-e-Mohammed, I beg your pardon, Jaish-e-Mohammed, were gunned down. 1 policeman was also injured. Also, a fierce gun battle started around 5 in the morning yesterday, when they were trying to infiltrate into Jammu through a truck. Now, the security forces say that these people, the terrorists, had also, a batch of terrorists, in fact, had also attempted one such infiltration yesterday also, that means day before yesterday also, and that was eliminated by the security forces, and this infiltration was attempted through the international border, and they were trying to come into Jammu. Also, the security forces say that huge ammunition has been recovered from these terrorists who have been nabbed rather killed. And also the paper talks of how in January also one such attempt had been foiled by the security forces, wherein the terrorists were trying to sneak into Jammu region through the international border. With that, the next headline I pick is coming in from the Quint. On your screens, we have the slide. It says children of COVID warriors who died to get MBBS and BDS reservation. Now, 5 central pool seats have been reserved for the children of Corona warriors in these specific courses, MBBS and BDS. Also, the paper specifically, the article in fact specifically talks of who all are covered as Corona warriors, and they are the frontline workers working in different areas. And the paper also talks of now the selection of the candidates is made by the Medical Council Committee, that is the MCC, through online application on the basis of the rank which has been obtained by the children in NEET 2020, which is conducted by the National Testing Agency. This has been said by Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan yesterday. With that, I'll pick up Tribune. Now, Tribune is carrying a very interesting headline. It says, this Delhi woman constable, Seema Dhaka, who has been given out-of-turn promotion, and now this is a very noble cause. She has rather traced missing children, and this initiative was launched by Delhi Police, wherein specifically all the constables or the head constables who will find missing children, more than 50 of them will be given out-of-turn promotion, and she is the first woman officer to be promoted out of turn. And the paper also specifically talks of, on your screens, I have put forth the statistics also, the number of children which she had rescued, 76 missing children in 3 months. Now also, the paper...
Well, thank you, Preeti, for those updates there from the World Wide Web. We owe Preeti a coffee because, she got up early in the morning getting us those latest from the World Wide Web.
And coming up next, news from the world of business in our segment BizBuzz. The International Monetary Fund has warned that global economic recovery may be losing momentum as coronavirus infections surge again. Fund Chief Kristalina Georgieva said more economic help is needed and warned countries against withdrawing aid too soon. Recent progress towards a vaccine has raised hopes of a return to normal, but despite these steps, the economic path ahead remains difficult and prone to setbacks, she said. The IMF has predicted the world economy will shrink by 4.4% this year, in the worst annual plunge since the 1930s. It expects growth of 5.2% next year, but said recovery is likely to be partial and uneven. And well, in our next segment, we bring you all the news from the world of tennis, from women's T20, as also all sports events making headlines, even as well amidst the COVID situation in our segment Sports Track.
Well, Rafael Nadal advanced to the semi-finals at the ATP Finals for the first time in 5 years and knocked out the defending champion, beating Stefanos Tsitsipas 6-4, 4-6, 6-2 at the O2 Arena. It is the 6th time in 10th appearances that Nadal has reached the semi-finals of the season-ending tournament, which is the biggest title he is yet to win in his illustrious career.
The International Cricket Council has postponed the Women's T20 World Cup. The South African edition of the Women's T20 World Cup was postponed by 3 months to February 2023 in order to avoid a cluster of big-ticket events in 2022 and manage players' workload.
India's Rishabh Jain created history by getting his name in the Guinness Book of World Records this year. He managed a focus 146 bounce in 1 minute with a table tennis ball, and that too blindfolded. He is the first Indian table tennis player to get his name in the world record books. The Delhi boy, who has completed his 10th exams, feels this feat required a great deal of concentration. He used the lockdown period to good effect as he trained with his coach Sandeep Gupta, who helped him immensely in his journey. 18 November 2020 marks the 16th annual Guinness World Records Day. Guinness World Record Day is an annual celebration of record breaking that sees thousands of people getting involved from across the globe.
Well, surfing isn't exactly synonymous with India, but that tide is slowly starting to change. In the land where cricket is king, a woman, Ishita Malviya, is breaking new water. The 29-year-old is India's first professional surfer. The country's huge coastline, coupled with its population of over 1 billion, means that she boasts enormous marketing potential. Malviya's passion for water started in 2007 when she met a German exchange student traveling in India. Time now for our next segment, Health, in which we give you tips for better health and better times.
While poor growth in children may be a sign of significant health problem, it is essential to investigate the cause of short stature and get it treated appropriately. More in this report.
Poor growth or short stature is a problem that affects many children. Parents are often concerned that their child is not growing properly. There are many factors that may affect the growth of the child.
Often parents are concerned that the child is not growing well or has short stature. There are various charts available for this, which are the Indian growth charts. So I would suggest that the parents meet the pediatrician and get the height and weight recorded and see whether actually he is falling below the standards, Indian standards. If this is the case, then there are various reasons for this, like hypothyroidism, malnutrition, or sometimes it can be as a result of gluten allergy or celiac disease. the doctor will recommend various tests for the child and also start treatment.
Slower than normal growth may be a sign of a significant health problem. The assessment of growth over time is the key to maintaining child's health.
The most common cause often is malnutrition, in which case the diet of the child has to be improved, and this will be the treatment will be given by the doctor or the dietitian. In the case of hypothyroidism, medicine has to be taken, which has to be taken empty stomach. In the case of celiac disease, there are various blood tests as well as biopsy, endoscopy, which can be done in the child. There is another problem which is known as growth hormone deficiency, which can be diagnosed on the basis of hormonal tests in a hospital. So I would recommend that if ever you feel that your child is not growing well or does not have enough weight, so please go and meet the doctor and get the necessary investigations done.
A large number of children go undiagnosed with short stature. So if your child has stopped growing or is growing at a slower rate than expected, consult a medical expert and find out the cause for the poor growth of the child. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
And it's the 20th of November today. Let's take a look at major events that make this day special in history.
On this day in 1889, Edwin Hubble, an American astronomer, was born in Missouri. He played a crucial role in establishing the fields of extragalactic astronomy and observational cosmology and is regarded as one of the most important astronomers of all time. On the same day in 1910, Leo Tolstoy, the Russian author considered one of history's greatest novelists, passed away at Astapovo in Empire. He is best known for the novels War and Peace and Anna Karenina. On this day in 1942, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., famously known as Joe Biden, the recent president-elect of the United States, was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Biden served as the 47th vice president from 2009 to 2017 during Obama's administration in the US. Biden, Democratic Party candidate, currently 77 of age, defeated Republican candidate and incumbent US President Donald Trump. On the same day in 2015, Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana scheme was launched by the Government of India for the financial turnaround of power distribution companies with an objective to improve the operational and financial efficiency of the state discoms. On this day in 2016, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana was launched with an aim of providing housing for all in rural areas with a target of construction of 2.95 crore houses with all basic amenities by 2022.
Well, those are the quick mentions of the special events that took place on this very day in history, November 20th. But two things that were missed out on. It was on this very day in 1985 that Microsoft's first version of Windows came about, and on this very day in 2017, Virat Kohli was the fastest to hit 50 centuries.
Right, well, interesting events there took place on this day, particularly when we remember that it was also the day when Leo Tolstoy passed away, considering how the world lost a very important author. Also, well, it's time now to take a look at the weather forecast and weather observations in our weather report.
Well, a low pressure area over the central parts of South Arabian Sea with associated cyclonic circulation circling over the mid-tropospheric level that's persisting. What it means is that northeast monsoon rainfall activity very likely to be subdued over the southeast peninsular India, including Tamil Nadu, during the next 2 to 3 days. Under the influence of a fresh easterly wave, scattered to fairly widespread rainfall accompanied with thunderstorm and lightning and isolated heavy rainfall very likely over Andaman and Nicobar over the next 48 hours. The minimum temperatures in most of the cities likely to fall gradually by 2 to 4 degrees over northwest India during the next 2 to 3 days, and central India by 2 to 4 degrees Celsius over the next 24 hours, and eastern India by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius over the next 48 hours and the subsequent 3 days.
And maximum temperatures were appreciably above normal at many places over Chhattisgarh, at a few places over Odisha and Jharkhand, and at isolated places over West Madhya Pradesh, Madhya Maharashtra, Vidarbha and Telangana. Above normal at a few places over Marathwada, Konkan and Goa. East Madhya Pradesh, Rayalaseema, coastal Andhra Pradesh and Yanam, and Gangetic West Bengal. Time now to take a look at temperatures recorded in towns and cities across the country.
Well, we are at the fag end of breakfast news, but remember, we began the year with lots of hopes, lots of claim that we'll get everything that we want in this particular year. But as we reach the fag end of this particular year, we have started appreciating everything that we have in our life. And what's the reason for that? COVID. COVID has caused havoc in our lives, and we need to be careful as we step out of our house. We've got a campaign running that's called Mask Up India on DD News and DD India, and we urge each and every one of you, we request each and every one of you, as you step out of your house, do not forget your shield in fighting COVID. That's the face mask. Wear it. Take it as a part of your other belongings as you step out of your house, your room keys, your medicines, all the inhalers that you hold on to. Please have a face mask as a part and parcel of your package.
Right, it's a simple task. Just wear a mask. And as always, we leave you as we end this edition of the Breakfast News with glimpses of Christmas traditions in the time of COVID. This year, children across the US won't get the chance to sit on Santa's lap and pose for photographs at the mall. A tech company has come up with an artificial intelligence alternative, creating a website where children can ask Santa questions online instead. Take a look and wear a mask as you go out. Mask Up India, Namaskar.